Hi, I'm David Jackson, and this afternoon, well, it's Saturday, July 17th, 2010, and we're in the main studio at KRE in Berkeley as part of the California Historical Radio Society's big open house and Radio Day by the Bay. And this is Harry O. Harry, great to have you with us today. Appreciate you sitting down with us for a while. Where'd you grow up at? Did you grow up here in the Bay Area?
I'm from San Francisco, California, and I was born in Oakland, but Truman was president when I left. Anyway, raised in San Francisco radio, San Francisco schools, San Francisco sports, all of it. I'm from San Francisco, although now we live in Sacramento. It's close enough.
What did you listen to when you were a kid?
Everything I could. I was talking to my wife on our way here, and I was talking about the last network radio drama hour, which was on CBS, probably late 50s. I used to listen to KYA when Don Klein did the baseball recreations, which was wonderful. And then KYA flipped to rock. I listened to Kobe. Have been fortunate enough during my career to have worked with people who were on Kobe. So even early on, I was able to.
Like who'd you work with?
I worked with Gil Hart,
of course,
at KNEW, and he really is the only one. Kobe had some jocks I really liked, like Ted Randall, Ted Cooper, all the Teds who could have been the same person. I don't know. And supposedly Gil Hart was one of the Art Ways at Kobe, and Art Way was the only way at Kobe, even though there probably was more than one. I liked everything. I discovered KSAN. And even though...
And this is the original 1450 KSAN.
1450 on your radio dial.
R&B radio station.
Yes, with Rockin' Lucky, Jumpin' George, Bugs Scruggs, the first person I ever met in radio, Irv Jackson, who I think was Irv J in those days on KSAN, and KDIA and KEWB. I listened to every major rocker in the market, and I am told that KGO was KGO for a hot minute. I never heard it. Never.
For a bit,
Right. I never listened to that, but I like jocks, and that was telling my wife again. I was 11 and knew that I wanted to be on the radio, and I'm considerably older than that, and I am still on 2 stations if I can toot my horn.
But what did you go and and hang out and press your face against the window, or was it a...
KDIA used to be in the Warner Radio Village
over in Oakland,
right? And yes, my mother was going to be on one of their public affairs programs, singing in a choir, live studio choir, and Roscoe was on the air as a jock, so I met him, and I think he gave me a Chubby Checker record, which is something they never would have played. Anyway,
you ended up with it.
But I just thought jocks were very cool, and
but now that was KDIA, or probably in the late KWBR period, when they were still in the Radio Village in Oakland, and had Don Barksdale and guys like that,
Yes, it's true. They had block programming. Belva Davis was on KDIA, and she, after the morning show with whoever did that, Belva Davis would come on with community interviews. And if I can say parenthetically, it wouldn't be such a bad idea if they did that again, But I listened to everything I could, probably to a fault, liking the music, but really liking more the jocks and the jingles and stuff like that. I think all in all, a pretty mainstream upbringing or childhood. It was the age of TV, but still hung on to the radio. And I listened, and there was a point, if you want to take a serious step for a second, America was segregated racially during that period, and everyone was in a box, and you couldn't break out of that box. NBC News had a reporter named Bob Teague, who they assigned to the Goldwater campaign in 1964. And apparently there was some friction, but NBC did have this Negro in those days covering a campaign. I thought to myself, wait a minute, if he can do that, I can do that. So, that fall I enrolled at City College Broadcasting. Professor Henry Leff, who passed a few years ago, and is still one of my biggest influences in the business. And the rest is history.
Was that at City College? Was that your first venture into broadcasting?
Yes.
You do anything? You didn't do anything before that. You didn't.
No.
But you knew from a very early age that this was going to be a career path for you as far as what you wanted to do.
Yes, career is kind of a generous word, but
still,
it's what I wanted to do.
Sure.
I was, if I had to be a teacher and work toward broadcasting or something like that, but I never did. After I was drafted out of City College, and then when I got out of the military, I got my first job.
What branch of the service did you?
I was in the Army. I was a draftee. I was in from '66 through '69. And
go back just a bit.
Yes.
With your time at City College San Francisco, KCSF, City College radio station. The name, your little.
I was Don Stevens. My middle name is Stevens, so it's Don Stevens. Don Stevens is even, and everybody else is irregular. So I was 18 and can be forgiven, I think. But and of course the real Don Steele, even Don Stevens.
Right.
So I think you have to be that way in media or in broadcasting or in entertainment. You have to steal from who you can or be influenced and things like that. I got a news job. If I'm telling my whole career, I got out of the Army. The next month, I got a news job at KDIA. In which I washed out. I wanted to do something else. Apparently, I was really tight and nervous.
This was Don Mitchell, and how did he get?
No, this was Harry Osibin, KDIA News.
At this point, okay.
Yes, for just for a month. And I washed out. I was let go, and I went to a first-class license school. One of your associates was talking about. I forget. Yeah,
was
I
it
really
up here,
did.
Or was it down south?
No, it was on South Van Ness, just right down from Mel's, and I forget what they were called, but I was, as one of your associates said, a 90-day wonder. I had a first-class radio license and was hired as an announcer at KDIA. And
who hired you over there?
oh gosh, well, Louis Freeman hired me in news, and the program director was Chuck Scruggs.
Oh,
no, it was Chuck Scruggs. And you always have ups and downs. And I was essentially a board op, what they would call now a board op. It's much less prevalent, in the old days because everyone, pulled a jock shift. So I did board opping and voice work. So, and things developed from there. Without going into a lot of detail, because you got to keep some secrets. That was 70. By 72, I had gotten an offer to go to KNEW, which was playing oldies.
Was that John Hawkins over there at that time?
John Hawkins didn't hire me. Maybe he did. I don't remember, actually.
California Gold?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Harry Stevens, and it was my first, if you will, general market exposure. I worked with Tom Campbell, Ron Lyons, Bill Collins. There are some guys who are nice to you, and but Bill Collins goes to the top of the list. Ron Lyons, who I had heard on KEWB years before. I was working with a lot of guys who were real good, and a lot of guys who had been influences for me. I also, since I was a member of IBEW, I could sit on the other side of the glass and spin records. on the same side of the glass as Carl Caterpillar, Jim Tharp, All-American DJ. And Tharp was amazing as far as orchestrating a show, because later you could edit a jingle onto the intro of a record. Tharp made it seamless manually.
Jim
Yes.
Thorpe, he was overnight. He was an overnight jock at KEW.
Okay, yes, I think he did.
Yeah, back many years before that.
I'm waving to a college radio friend. So I was an engineer, a jock, and sold adult beverages at the Oakland Coliseum.
Okay.
So that was early 70s, quite busy. So, do you want to ask any questions?
No, this is that you're. I mean, that you're rolling it. This is as good as a. We're not deposing you for a court case or anything else, but you know the detail.
Yes, in a lot of ways.
I'm sorry. Tangent though. You were selling beer at the Coliseum on
Right.
Raiders games and things like that.
Raiders and A's.
Oh, Raiders and A's.
Yes.
Harry M. Stevens didn't have the concession there at that time, did they? Or was that just Candlestick?
No, Stevens was in San Francisco.
I just thought, wait a minute, Harry Stevens. You didn't get that name from the concessionaire company.
No, my actual middle name is
Stevens. Yeah, I just
originally.
They stole it from him.
Sorry, I had to ask.
Well, it's funny. I was Harry Stevens on KNU, and it's the only station that I ever used that name, even though it's mostly my own name. It was my least favorite. Mighty Mitch and Harry Stevens were my least favorite names. I'm Harry O. My mother initially said, I said, why are you changing your name? Be Harry O. Eventually I did, because Keith Adams at KDIA, who was program director in the mid-'70s sometime, said, no, you're Harry O. So that was it, yes. So I could be Harry O on the case in country, oldies, top 40, urban, and that's all. So it worked out, and even now I produce public affairs for KFRS in Soledad, California. Very happy to have it, and I'm Harry O. You know, what kind of news guy is just a letter for a last name? Well, it just sticks with me.
It's a great brand name. You know, it's you.
Thank you.
It's just a great.
Well, it's funny. I was on an air staff with Harry O, Captain Kirk, and I forget the other TV name we had on the air. And it was kind of funny. Charlie Brown, probably something. Yeah. So it's very funny.
How'd you end up at KYA, and why, of all names, Mighty Mitch?
Because I was Don Mitchell at KDIA.
Okay.
Why did I go to KDIA? That's a very good question. KNU was switching from oldies to country. I didn't want to get lost in the shuffle, i.e. fired, so I auditioned to KYA. It was 2 to 6, 8, 10 to token, if you will. And I got the job. Wasn't particularly a good fit, but if it could have been better, and I would like to have done better at KYA, even though I ended up quitting that job because KNU had a place for me in country. I became a KNU cowboy. So yeah, it was fun. It was fine. I like KYA. I always thought of myself as a top 40 jock because I hardly ever did it.
Who were you there? You were with Jimmy Jett there at the same time you were there?
At KYA, the day I started, the guy who hired me got fired.
Why is this a recurring theme today? We're 3 for 3, Dave.
I know.
Gee, well, I guess it's more common than I thought.
No?
But and Jet followed shortly thereafter, and I forget his real name, but Jet was a good guy, But I did, in fact, work with Dean Goss, Beaver Cleaver.
Great Ken Levine, yeah.
Yes, now known as Ken Levine, or his real name, Ken Levine. And Steve Jordan,
Steve Jordan.
who is, I count as one of my friends today. I haven't seen him for a year, but let's see, who else? There are some others. Gee, the memory fades. But there are some good guys there, and Steve Jordan is probably one of the best jocks I ever worked with, and just had the naturalness. And I was a bit more hyper, you know, than some of the other guys. And Goss was good, and as you know, he's had a long career in the Bay Area. And our morning guy, the program director, Roger W. Morgan. And but I was only there for a few months. Went back to KNU, did overnights, and then late night, and then 7 to midnight. And fortunately, there was country is always America's music, the fastest growing brand. This was the second or third time for that. But Merle Haggard had his biggest crowd for the tour he did in '75 in Oakland, you know, with Emmylou Harris opening. So we were, with Michael Hunter and Steve Leader, we were doing pretty well, you know, as the first full-time 24-hour country music station.
At that station at that time?
Bobby Guerra, yeah.
That's, some pretty heavy country guys.
That
Yeah,
was-
it's true.
That was a Metro Media station at the time.
Metro
That time,
Media,
yeah.
sister to KSAN in this market, and KLAC and KMET in Los Angeles. And we had a softball game. I didn't play in it, but it was KNU against KSAN, the Hicks versus the Slicks. You know, so it was kind of funny. But I wonder if you've heard this in these interviews today, how much different big-time corporate radio was in you know, the 60s and 70s, you know, where the budgets were big. KNU had a huge suite in Jack London Square, and KSAN was over in an office building in San Francisco downtown, and you know, there were perks galore, and all that stuff has just gone away, you know, over the years. So so we are at, I wanted to mention KNEW. Merle Haggard was at his peak. Charlie Pride had major hits. Waylon Jennings was just breaking out. And it was, you know, it was the first, in my mind, the first era of country's cool, you know, kind of thing. So
between the Outlaws and the more Nashville
Right.
stuff at that time. So
Right.
yeah, good.
and the oldies, and then if you threw in traditional oldies, you had a nice mix of country, which if you are searching radio today, you're not going to find. You're going to find people I never heard of, you know, because they're, I mean, I sort of know who Martina McBride is, and any of the other, you know.
Carrie Underwood and people like that who are
Exactly.
you know, more mainstream. And
So I did some country in El Paso also in '78. So the last, you know, I played 3 Times a Lady, but it was by someone named Nate Harvell.
of course, yeah, sure.
You know, and then I got to Houston. This is '78. Got to Houston, and played 3 Times a Lady by the Commodores.
Yeah.
But
Where was there was a jump though from Oakland and KNEW to you know, El Paso City by the Rio Grande.
yes,
You know?
you know, there was in El Paso in the late '70s. There was a local guy who got over doing Marty Robbins impressions, and his big hit was "The Lights of El Paso Behind Me."
Oh boy.
Anyway, let me ask this parenthetically: how frank were your previous interviewees as far as feuds and?
Pretty darn.
Okay, I'm not going to
Well,
go
you're
there.
comfortable with Harry. I mean, you know,
Well,
it's
I had run out the string. You know, I had 8 years of no unemployment, 3 stations, maybe 6 jobs altogether, and finally I'd spent fall '77 doing afternoon drive at KDIA, and it didn't work out. And this is while I was going to school full time at Merritt. And
studying towards.
comparative government. I would like to do political talk show now, and drama. I'd like to speak better than I do now. Anyway, but I'd run out the string, essentially. You know, I walked away from KDIA mad, and was unemployed until a friend of mine said, come to El Paso, and it was a pretty radical move for me. And I did, and I was glad that I did, although I missed the Bay Area greatly. So from 78 to 82 is El Paso, Houston, St. Louis, Houston.
Single guy at this time, living in,
Single.
moving to Texas, so it wasn't that tough to pull up stakes and just move.
In El Paso, did you make it across the Rio Grande to Ciudad Juarez at all?
Yes, I was never more inebriated in my life one night in El Paso, and so I would be naming names, but I ended up almost, well, he was kicking me, almost in a fist fight with an associate from the radio station. So as
statute of limitations is kind of beyond at this point, right?
Yeah, he's still around. Anyway, and I'm sorry for that. You know, not making anyone to blame. But yeah, I visited Juarez a couple of times.
Did you visit X-Rock at all?
No, but we got, when X-Rock blew out Captain Kirk came to join Harry O at K102.
Besides, you could hear X-Rocks on the filling, fillings in your teeth.
Not like XCRF.
Yeah, I don't know.
X-Rock 80.
XCRS,
So
yeah.
cool.
God, you could listen to that here in the Bay Area, man. Good times.
That's funny. I don't know if they do that. One wonders, those super stations like X-Rock and XCRB and all those, what do they do now with the internet? You know, where you can hear a station from.
That's the funny thing about it is that, like, you know, XCRB is now XPRS, has been XPRS since 1972, and they're a San Diego sports station. But yet most of their stuff is on the web, you know. So they got the Padres games, they got the Chargers games on the radio.
And then 690 down there is
back to
690.
Mexico. 690's bad at nighttime. They've got a guy who does. I'm working on your time here, but they've got a guy who does like numerology at night at like 9 o'clock. If you get away from the Bay Area, at Sacramento, you probably you get in the foothills, and this guy's got echo on his voice, and he's going 800-655-1313 and you're like, oh, look, it's just like back in the 70s again.
Well,
and we'll cut that part out and get back to you. Now back to part 2 of our Harry O interview.
Well, but I have a story on Hispanic reverb. Several of the stations I worked at had Spanish day parts, and in this one station, the guy was cutting commercials. He was in production cutting commercials with all this reverb and stuff like that. And I said, Julio, do you have to put all that stuff on there? And he said, oh, I didn't think I put that much on.
I was underplaying a little bit.
Yes. But anyway, yes, please, David, continue.
From Texas to St. Louis.
What happened was 6 months. I liked El Paso, but again, I got an offer, and I'm in my career, I'm not a guy who's gotten a lot of offers. And Jack Patterson, who I was talking to the security guard today, who he heard Jack on 1580 K-Day in Los Angeles. Jack Patterson called me and said, come to Houston and do mornings, you make X number of dollars, and it's the #1 station in town. It was the first urban station to be an unqualified success. So,
what was the station? What was it called?
It was Magic 102 FM. KMJQ still exists, although it's classic urban, you know, or whatever, kind of like KISS here. But I went there.
Old school. And
exactly. And I went there and actually did pretty well. I had a 12. I had a 12-1, or the station had a 12-1. What I had in mornings was a 20 in women. So maybe the methodology, I should just take the credit, but maybe the methodology, right, I got a 20.1 in women, and that has been my best book, of course, but it's always been more my stock and trade. I'm not a bad guy, you know, and Harry O is a good guy, whatever. So I was in, all these stories. I did mornings for a year in Houston. During that time, Houston flooded. I had to spend the night at the radio station to be on time for my shift at 6 a.m. While my dog in the apartment held out as long as he could, but he did make a mess. Not a bad mess.
But a mess nonetheless.
Yes, and he was a good dog. Anyway, that kind of dedication came to the attention of my superiors, and very shortly thereafter I was promoted to program director at Magic 108 in St. Louis, where I lasted for a year. Number one urban, or number one black, whatever, a 3-station market, but the results weren't quite, I won't go into a lot of detail, but that wasn't good enough, so we move on. And I went back to Houston for a book, and then
Same station again, Magic.
yeah, back to me. It was all corporate, same corporate Amaturo group.
Oh, is that okay? That was
Yes. Not the, it's Amaturo.
Amaturo, yes. Yeah.
That was the specification.
Oh, there was no the in front, it was just Amaturo.
Right,
Okay.
right. So I got mad and quit. So I was in St. Louis, unemployed for a while. Actually, it was 7 months. I was unemployed for 7 months, did a little club DJing. Got out of work for 7 months, got 3 offers in 1 week. So that's cool. So I ended up in Cleveland.
You're slowly but surely working your way across the Midwest.
I know. Cleveland, again, it was okay. But again, the results were not, not as good as they wanted. And frankly, after the changes they made, they did better. They did worse and then better. So
What was that station?
it was WZAK FM. It was 93.1. And actually, I was the first program director. And people I've worked with. Let me backtrack. In Houston, I worked with Jim Maddox and Jack Patterson, 2 brilliant radio guys. I was the morning guy. Mike Cavell did afternoons. Bill Travis, a solid pro. I forget some of the other names. In St. Louis, Barry Pope.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
Barry and I parted on not good terms, but we're friends now.
Friends or Facebook friends?
Facebook friends. But Barry's okay. Everyone's okay. Barry, you're okay. But Barry... Doug Banks was on staff in St. Louis. Doug is a brilliant talent, and I'll leave it at that. And he deserves all the success that he's garnered since he left St. Louis, and other stations. So in Cleveland, the Friday after the 49ers won their first Super Bowl, I was in the unemployment line. It snowed that day, and we went out the door. Cleveland is always in a depression. Kidding.
Not.
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
And I've found things to like about Cleveland. Carol Ford was there on our opposition.
Okay.
And I only know her name to drop her name.
She'd been at KYA at one point.
She was a KYA. That's why we became friends. I tried to hire her away from where she was. Also, I met her mother, and as a coincidence, when I applied for unemployment after being fired by 93 FM, Carol Ford's mother was my unemployment clerk. And all she had to say was, "Oh, they keep running them out," So it was, it's tragicomic, if you will. And a few months later, I actually turned down an offer to go to a local station in Cleveland. It was WJMO. We jam more often. And I moved back to San Francisco, which is probably the smartest thing I ever did. caught on at KDIA. This was 83.
But you moved back with no prospects. You moved back. You didn't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
anything lined up. You just
Yes.
knew you wanted to get back.
Yes, my family was providing, I could stay rent-free, so that was fine. I'm bachelor, still have my dog, born in Berkeley, and now back in the Bay Area. But I worked at KDIA for a while, taught at the old Bailey School of Broadcast.
Oh, Bailey School
Yes.
of Broadcast.
Taylor Street.
Yes, in the wonderful Art Deco studios of the former KPO.
Yeah.
KNBC.
KBHK Channel 4,
Yeah.
420 Taylor Street.
Exactly. They've ruined it now with remodeling, but in the 80s, it was still an Art Deco gem that just hadn't been wrecked yet. And we're speaking in the setting of this radio station, so it was pretty good. Actually,
Meanwhile, you're back at the little tent shack by the Bay Bridge.
right,
In the swamp.
doing weekends. I've spent a lot of my career doing weekends, which is just how the cards fell. I was. By that time, Barry Pope was a very big star in the milieu of the Bay Area. Anyway, leaving out some details, I caught on as production director at KITS in September of '84, and I left that station in March of 2006.
Pretty good little run.
Yes. I told myself I was going to hang on with both hands.
So you got there, would you get there right after they switched to Hot Hits, or was that?
No, it was during Hot Hits, but they had hired a friend of mine from St. Louis, Craig Roberts,
Okay.
who had worked for me in St. Louis and is a top 40 legend. And Craig returned the favor by putting in a word for me with Bob Garrett, Bob Lawrence, and I don't know what name he's using now. But anyway, I was production director for a few years, and then became, I was just a jock, for a brief time, and ended up as public affairs director.
When did was that started with the Green Hour, or was that
The
right
Green
away, or
Hour,
was that just...
within a few months.
Okay.
We were KITS Hot Hits at that time. Our program director for the GM and program director decided that there should be a gay-themed program on the station, and that would have been Ed Cramp and Richard Sands. And so we employed an activist named Ken McPherson, and then another woman, and I forget her name. But there was a lesbian themed show and then a gay male themed show every other week. That was about 3 weeks before the '89 earthquake. So nothing ironic or anything, but anyway.
What were you suggesting here?
Nothing at all.
Tell us about the format change from the Hot Hits to the modern rock, the alternative. That was unique, right?
I can only comment without having any inside knowledge at all. I was in on no programming meetings, but Steve Masters was given a Monday night slot. He was a regular jock in the regular format.
Yeah, so he was playing some more
but he had
wave stuff on Monday evenings.
Because the Quake had gone away, so he was able to play some of their oldies, but also some currents that also Steve used to brag, I think, with justification that he was bringing his own stuff in, his own records. He did his own mixes and this, that, and the other. So we had a pretty hot sounding radio station. And I was talking to a friend of mine and just saying, we were somewhere trying to pick up K-Fogs, my wife's favorite station.
Did you get that on camera?
Right. But we were somewhere, probably Vallejo, just in the outskirts, and trying to get a signal. I thought to myself, gee, that's what they used to do in Santa Rosa and other environs when Live 105 was really a hot station. You'd go to an intersection with your friends, try to find it. So, and that was very exciting in those days. Steve did a great job, and if you're talking brand, Live 105 was the brand at that time. So the transition was, dropping some mainstream stuff, adding some other alternative, futzing with the rotation.
And the Quake had probably gotten rid of their morning man at some point too.
Oh, Alex?
Yeah, Alex was probably on available at that time also.
Let me think. Actually, Alex was on staff with a top 40 format, but it made it easier
to make that transition.
To make the transition.
One more step towards that.
Because
and he doesn't do a standard morning show anyway, so he wasn't doing playing records. He was Alex being Alex.
True, but the records he was playing, might have included Janet Jackson, as an artist. But it was a gradual transition, and we had good success. And Ed Kraft, Pat McNally, Richard Sands, Steve Masters, Mark Van Gelder is one of my best friends in radio.
Followed Alex on.
Pardon me?
He followed Alex on the morning.
Yes.
9 to noon or something.
Yeah, he did middays. Lori Thompson, who is out of the market now, but she'd be here, Yeah. But Christy Frazier, and I learned a lot by being around there, producing a show, because I ended up as public affairs, ended up booking people, getting people from Christie's Rolodex or Lori Reed's Rolodex, I've interviewed members of 2 presidential families. And actually, they wouldn't do Alex. I shouldn't say that. Kidding, Alex. But Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a green activist, and Susan Ford, is very much into. I think she runs the Betty Ford Clinic now. So we had a discussion about addictions and things like that. So I learned, as a public affairs director, and now I'm switching all over the place. I learned that. Although it was great to have a local volunteer with the Red Cross, and I want to have the local volunteer with the Red Cross, if I can get someone from a presidential family with something to say, or if I can get Jerry Brown or Gavin Newsom or Jesse Ventura, I will, and hope that I can grow an audience for the public affairs end of our programming.
Go ahead. I was going to say after Live 105, after KITS, you were also involved with the other stations in the group also. Once
as consolidation came in, I ended up with more responsibilities, and I was on, I think, 5 stations, 2005, 2004, on Sunday morning. Live 105 in Alice. I was on Alice for 5 years on Sunday morning and really, really liked it. Then adding 1550 AM. My God, Stephen. Stephen Page. Thank you, Stephen. KFRC FM. And I think that's all. And for a hot minute, I was on the ill-fated KIFR.
The Free FM.
Right, Free FM. Where the program director said, "I don't want your show on my station." I'm doing a little Sunday morning show. What do you want?
Wow. And that station didn't succeed?
No, it did not succeed. But what is my point? The production assistant, during the few weeks that my show was on his station, I did an author interview with a businesswoman, and Naked was in the title. And the production, Corey, the production assistant, said, that'll work well around here. It says Naked. And he was being ironic. Corey, you're a good guy. Anyway, at CBS had consolidated, and they also consolidated my salary, so I was doing, 5 stations for the price of 1.
That'd be good for you.
So, and that's, that's business, whatever. So, since then, we moved to Sacramento, the economy, but you know, you can't outrun the economy. But we're in Sacramento now. I spent a year at the Metro Bureau, and I was happy, my ego. I read more news than traffic, so I felt somehow vindicated, but I did do a little traffic. And then they closed the Bureau. And currently I am producing via telephone public affairs for KFRS in Soledad, California, serving Soledad, Greenfield, Gonzales, and all of southern Monterey County. And it's family radio. You would know them in the Bay Area. They now own the big 610 KFRC.
A station that's actually a transmitter back behind you.
Yes.
In the next room over here.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And
just to cover, you've never met Harold Camping.
Never met Harold Camping, although I've heard and read much about him. And
how did you get that job? I mean, was that just something that came out of the blue? It's like
Craigslist.
I'll be done. I cannot see Harold Camping sitting down going, I'm going to put this on Craigslist. It's
the person facilitating I knew from public affairs circles in the Bay Area.
okay. Network.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And he saw my name and took the plunge, and I'm very happy. Thank you, Matthew. And it's actually very good for
That is
the station and me. Pierce.
Matthew Pierce has been there forever. Like,
Yes.
He's been with family for years and years and years. And let's talk about you in the Green Hour, Ben. And you're still, you've been doing it now
Since 1990.
as a continuing effort.
Right, but it's I'm really not in production at this very moment. I was doing it in the recent past for KYOU, and I was also, I was on Green 960. My God, Green 960,
Of course.
online and on the radio, and I had an outlet in an affiliate in Dallas. Irv Jackson ran that station. You know Irv, right? It was Irv Station. So, at the very least, I'm going to get a ton of name drops in this. But Irv is still looking to create the progressive talk station for North Texas. But anyway, so the Green Hour was last heard. Now it's known as Earth Witness News.
Okay.
But I'll take whatever credit I can get. But has been on as recently as last year in Dallas and Green 960. Thanks to John Scott also, who is no longer at Clear Channel. But and all these guys are Facebook friends. You know, Facebook, social media has its use. You know, but anyway, the Green Hour is an idea that Richard Sands and I came up with. It is the oldest that we know of commercial broadcast of its kind, period. No one has done this kind of programming before, and all we did was take environmental or green topics, and my mantra is conservation. You cannot, even those who poo-poo all the theories in the environmental movement, no one can deny that conservation is the bedrock, just using less, restoring when and where you can, wearing somebody else's tie. But the thing is, seriously, don't get me started. Anyway, that's the viewpoint of the Green Hour, and it was live for a number of years on Live 105, and with authors, and I had the founder of Earth First and one of the preeminent right-wing ideologues in the environment, Steve, oh gosh, I forget Steve's last name, but he's Pacific Research Institute. I heard him a few weeks ago on Bill Bennett. He and Bill Bennett are real big friends. Anyway, the point is, would like to present diverse viewpoints in the environment, with things in some cases that may not seem so vital, like restoration, but it really is, you know, if you will. So there are shows now that are on, and
But your place though is still as a pioneer. I mean,
yes.
If you look back at the origins of your program, it was pioneering even at that point. There wasn't really anything else out there.
It is true, and thank you. It is true. I mean, my God, I heard a guy, these anecdotes. There's a former KGO host who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. And in the year before his death, he did a segment on the environment and took about 5 minutes to qualify himself as not being a wacko, not being any of this, I'm still really mainstream, mm-hmm. I'm on, he was on the State Water Commission or something, but he jumped through all these hoops to try to make ideas that are in and of themselves common sense. He tried to convince people that these ideas were common sense.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So that's always bothered me. I tell people that I've seen the natural world mostly through the windshield of an automobile, but I still respect and revere conservation, practice it myself, believe that we wouldn't be in at least 2 wars if we did conserve more, and the Gulf wouldn't be fouled the way it is. Anyway, so it was a learning, taking a disc jockey and then evolving into this kind of talk show. It's not that it is especially hard, but the Green Hour was a public affairs program, and you don't have a large audience. If you're lucky, you can build a good, loyal audience. Mm-hmm. Well, Sunday mornings in the Bay Area is what? Acoustic Sunday on KFOG, and Bernie Ward, mm-hmm. Who used to be on KGO.
So it's God Talk, and
yes.
Yeah, it's Hooked on Golf and things like that.
Hooked on Golf, I'd forgotten about that, but there are other big draws for that.
A program similar to that is in Los Angeles on KFI, the Jesus Christ Show.
I've heard that show, but not in 5 or 6 years.
Or is he usually have guests?
Somebody who says he is.
Yes, and he's. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to. Where are you headed? What do you? Have you got?
I should also add that I am the Sacramento Environmental News Examiner, examiner.com. Mm-hmm. And what I would like to do is more organize the kind of projects I have. They aren't, my work isn't organized, if you will. So anyways, I'm doing some writing, I'm doing some radio. I have 2 jobs. I still do Top 10 Mid-Harry O. California Girls is #1, 6 weeks.
Thank you, Katy Perry.
Yes, and I still do. I still do community issues on KFRS. So I have that and strive to do the best I can. I'd like more projects, as simple as that. And when Steve invited me to do this, I was thinking, gee, if all of these radio guys of a certain age are going to be on the premises, does he have a job board that he might, because I think I interviewed Johnny Morris for a podcast. He's a nominee for the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. And, he is working. But I think he'd like to be a jock again.
Sure.
I don't know if I'd like to be a jock again, but I sure would like to have, a long-form program. Mm-hmm. So if Steve or you or Dave know of any openings, it's like Orson Welles. Every award he got, he would thank everyone and then try to get money. Let's do lunch. So,
exactly.
But
I always thought that was a good idea for this. That the Northern California Broadcasters Association should have tables out here for every radio station. And I don't care what jobs you got. If you're trying to recruit kids to come in, or if you're looking for somebody who's got talent to burn.
True. And actually, David, it's a creative way to do it, because if you're spending money or whatever, even just trading for a downtown meeting room,
sure.
You can save the cash and do things more organically. But it's consolidation, I would say, has affected NCBA and like organizations greatly because there's less energy around a station because there are fewer people.
Imagine yourself, 5, you know,
Yes.
one job, one salary,
True.
5 jobs, one salary.
True.
What's worse? No
True.
job, no salary. You know, that's
Good point.
a lot of people in the same boat.
And I replaced Sam Van Zandt on KFRC FM when he went to his current job, and he was someone I listened to. I said, "Gee, I can't do what Sam does." Yeah, so it was very consolidation. It's all cyclical.
Of course, yeah.
Yes. So.
Hey, radio with the whole digital and everything else that's coming up, radio is going to evolve into something completely different. Like I said, those cell phones, those aren't phones, those are
It's
radios,
true.
man. You know, I can get radio stations in perfect fidelity from all over the world right now out of my pocket. It's not podcasts. It's not. It's there's more radio stations out there.
I have an MP3 player that is about the size of this bottle cap, and it's got an FM tuner in
There you
it.
go. Yeah.
I interviewed Ben Fong Torres with it. The mic is that okay enough. I asked Ben Fong Torres, this is an interview about an interview, what, in general terms, what did he think of the future of radio? And he said, well, I'm confident, which is news to some of us, but I will take that sentiment, and I think we all should.
Absolutely. I mean, it's still a vital entertainment form, and it's also it's an easiest way to get the information. You don't have to have a satellite subscription or anything. You don't have to have a computer or a wireless connection or anything like that.
And when something major happens, people still will switch on the radio.
As long as their station's there to cover it, and people behind the microphones who are able to draw breath and.
Well, at Live 105, we could always throw to KCBS.
There you go. For what it's worth. Yeah.
Same building.
But and actually, that's not a disservice, really. Live 105, for instance, is not staffed to. I did war coverage during the first Gulf War on Big Rick Stewart's show on Live 105, but essentially, we would do a quick body count or whatever, and go back to Hot House Flowers. Yeah. So. Anyway, if I dropped enough names this afternoon.
Did we miss anything? Is there anything that you really, really needed? I apologize if we missed anything, but I wanted to make this fairly wide-ranging and make sure we...
if I think of it, I'll send a Facebook message. No, what's funny for me is I'm not retired, but I'm the same age as all these guys, younger than... the people who have died, like Aaron Edwards and Ron Lyons. What a shock! But
Ron was not an old man when he got sick, and
no.
Look, Alex is still working and doing a hell of a job on air every single day. That he's out there. And, there are no young people in radio right now. Consolidation has killed that off.
It's true, and also.
A young person in radio these days is probably mid-40s if they're making any salary at all.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We've lost a couple generations of people.
I just want to say that and I sound like an old guy. The copywriters can't conjugate verbs. They can't write a complete sentence to save their souls. News writers are the same. And there's a commercial on now. Where they have two pandas, and the guy says, well, first of all, we're bears. They're not bears. Deliver me. Anyway.
On that note.
Let me say this. I got C's in English in high school, but I'm a product of the San Francisco public school system.
Thank you very much.
George Washington High School, class of '64.